Hello? My cat just jumped on top of my filming setup. See how this goes. Walter, be careful. Walter, do not touch the ring light. Walter, do not eat the microphone. Welcome back if you're coming back. Welcome if this is your first time seeing me, my face. Welcome to a certified witch wish experience. Few housekeeping things before I start talking. If you watched my last video, I got a new microphone. I have removed it from my person because I moved my hands too much and there was so much muffled noise, so it is now a safe distance from me as long as my cat does not eat it. And I also think it's dying, so give me 1 second to go get the other microphone. Okay, the microphone has been replaced and it is far away from me so that I cannot make horrible muffled noises. Today, I am going to be talking about something I have mentioned in at least one other of my videos. It's no secret to anyone who is returning to my videos that I love found footage, and internet horror, and analog horror, and all that fun stuff. And the thing that truly got me into this genre, and later into the other subgenres related, is the VHS franchise, which I feel like may surprise some people because a lot of people maybe don't love that franchise or wouldn't consider it a movie powerful enough to get someone as into this stuff as I now am into this stuff. But it really changed my perception. I used to be very skittish and scared. I didn't like horror movies, and I mentioned this in another video. I saw Blair Witch Project, loved that, and then somehow found myself into the VHS series. I think mainly it was because in my early horror years as a teenager, I really loved Ty West, who has now gone on to become a very well-respected and beloved director thanks to X and Pearl. I want to say I've been there since, not day one because I was too young to have been there since day one, but I have loved him for like a decade, and it feels so good to see him beloved and flourishing. It makes me so happy. He's so talented. Walter, if you don't stop. So the plan here is to go through all of the feature-length VHS films and rank them, I don't want to say worst to best because everything, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It is just going to be my ranking of least favorite to favorite. I think that's a better way to say it because I really love this whole series. I have a few that I have issues with, but Walter, I think there's merit in every single one.
I'm so sorry.
It's fun. Oh my god. Walter! Is he jumped down?
Jesus Christ.
The VHS series was accepted by Brad Miska and his company Bloody Disgusting. It was just really a way to get a lot of the directors that he knew together to create their own thing, and they ended up submitting it to Sundance in 2012, and it was accepted, and it was received pretty well. So from there, the series expanded. There are 6 films in total. 2 of the shorts have been adapted into feature films. I'm not going to cover those because I've not seen those. And then there was a mini series that I'm also not going to cover because I've not seen that. I'm just talking the 6 mainline. And VHS, VHS 2, and the third VHS Viral were all boom, boom, boom. 2012, 2013, 2014, and I would consider that's the original trilogy. And for years, that was it. That was the VHS series. Then, in 2021, the original group, Brad Miska and such, got together with Shudder and put out what is now a new trilogy, but they're continuing from here, and that would be VHS 94, VHS 99, and then this year, VHS 85. The 7th one was literally just announced, and that will be coming out next year, and they said it's going to be all sci-fi themed, which is interesting because there have been some sci-fi ones in the past, but it'll be kind of cool to see them all together because then the connecting story may also be sci-fi. Typically, Each VHS film is comprised of several short tapes that are short films made by different directors, all found footage. And then there's a wraparound film that serves as like the narrative structure. And all of them have this except for 99, which is more like flipping through channels kind of thing. I'll get into that more later, but the rest of them do have a wraparound. That's the basic premise. I'm gonna try not to be too long-winded because there's just so many shorts to get through, and anyone who's been watching my videos knows I like to talk, so I'm gonna try not to talk too much. Here we go. I'm gonna rank the entire VHS mainline series from my least favorite to my most favorite. So, rounding in at my least favorite of all of the films, the main films, is VHS Viral, which is the third installment that came out in 2014, and it's just not necessary. The title in itself kind of proves that, because it's called VHS Viral. Those things do not belong together. And I think it would have been better if they did like a spin-off where they turned it into like YouTube horror stories or something, because by 2014, your Terror of the Androids and your There Is Nothings and your Shay St. John's, they were all out there. This was not new stuff, so I think that maybe would have been more successful than this. The shorts aren't all horrible by any means, but just the whole vibe of the movie does not work. It's really the wraparound is what kills it for me as a whole film, which I'll talk about more later, but let's get into the shorts. Rounding out my least favorite of this one, there's only 3 shorts in this one, is Dante the Great, directed by Greg Bishop. I'm gonna be perfectly blunt. I think this is the worst short in the entire series by far. It doesn't feel like found footage whatsoever, and it's supposed to be kind of like a mockumentary about this magician, and it just doesn't work. It does not feel like it belongs in the series. It's really corny, and I just... I don't quite understand why this was chosen. I feel like there are a lot of other ideas that could have worked a little better. I'm not familiar with this director. He may be wonderful. I know he went on to direct Siren, which is an adaptation of one of the beloved VHS entries that I'll get into later. I don't think that was received super great. I would love to see you come back again, Mr. Bishop, to a VHS series with maybe just a plot that makes a little more sense. Coming up next, we have Bone Storm, directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Scott Moorhead, who went on to direct The Endless, which is a film I really enjoy. I don't think this is a horrible short by any means. It's about some skateboarders that end up coming in contact with like a death cult, and it's filmed like one of those, you know, skateboard home videos, which I think is really fun. I think that that's a very obvious, not obvious in a bad way, but like a smart, obvious thing that exists. Like, people love to make skate films, so I'm surprised it took the third into the series to do a skating one, because it's just something that I feel like is, you know, filmed skate videos are very integral to skate culture. I think it's campy. I think it's fun. I think that Benson and Moorhead have gone on to do great things from there, and I think that's something that's so fun about this series, is you get to see these directors, you know, start small and get so much bigger than that, and for that, I like Bone Storm. And that's the thing. Even though this is my least favorite, I still enjoyed 2 out of 3 of these shorts. It's just, you know, not as good as the other ones. So my favorite from Viral is a weird one. Parallel Monsters, directed by Nacho Vigalondo, who went on to direct Colossal, the Anne Hathaway monster film, and Puka, the Hulu Into the Dark film, which Hulu Into the Dark is a trend among these filmmakers, which is great. I love me some Hulu Into the Dark, don't get me wrong. Parallel Monsters is about a scientist who creates a portal to another dimension, reality, timeline that's almost exactly the same. However, you know, I'm gonna try not to spoil things too much, but this one I'm gonna go full spoiler for Parallel Monsters. The other parallel version, parallel reality people all have monstrous genitalia and chaos ensues. Let's just say that. It's insane. It's an insane plot. I almost think that you need more than a short to fully explore this, because when they hit you with the monster penises, it's a shock. It's a shock to the system. So, and this is one that, you know, I am not a found footage purist. I am not, it must be 100% accurate. This one doesn't really need to be found footage. I almost think it would be a better story if it was fleshed out just like as a normal film. I think sometimes found footage can be a hindrance to a story, and I think this is the case. But I have to say it's my favorite because it's just so insane. And that's one thing I applaud. Sometimes these directors go crazy on VHS. They do not play, and I applaud Mr. Vigilando for not playing. So that is all Viral, my least favorite of the series. Let's move on. Next up, we have VHS 2, which is the second entry in the series, and that came out in 2013. The thing that's interesting about this one is I think the first one was decently successful, and they didn't want to just repeat it. So you see the filmmakers taking a lot of very strong creative risks on what found footage can be, which on paper sounds great, but sometimes it just doesn't work. I feel like found footage in general is a very, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, I think you don't have to find the most creative way in the world to make something a found footage film. It just needs to make sense, and sometimes it doesn't even need to make sense. It just needs to be fun. My least favorite, starting again, least favorite to favorite, of VHS 2 is one called Phase 1 Clinical Trials, directed by Adam Wingard. And Adam Wingard is a director that I love. He's directed You're Next, and The Guest, and the Blair Witch requel that I love, which I know is controversial. And then he's gone on to direct Godzilla movies. Like, he's killing it. He's great. Love Adam Wingard and his writing partner Simon Barrett, who we will see again throughout this. Adam Wingard also stars in it. And as I said earlier, I have no issue with found footage being too logical, making too much sense, but this is just, there's no way that this footage would have ended up on a tape, because it is filmed with a like cybernetic contact. And that's just like, that's too much of a stretch to me. More sci-fi, but also I just think it's way too much of a stretch. And this is where we'll get into, like, just because this is, you know, onto the second film, that doesn't mean I like it better than some of the ones in Viral. That's a whole different video if I literally ranked every single short. But that would just, I figured it would be better to rate it by individual movie. So, like, for example, I probably like Parallel Monsters better than I like Phase 1 Clinical Trials. But we're ranking by each individual film because that makes my brain hurt less. Moving on, A Ride in the Park, directed by Eduardo Sanchez and Greg Hale. And similar to the last one with Adam Wingard, Eduardo Sanchez is someone who on paper I should love to death because he directed the Blair Witch Project. He was one of the directors of the Blair Witch Project. And that made me get so excited for this, because when I saw this, I had, you know, just seen the Blair Witch Project. I didn't know he had done anything else. And it's just not for me. It's about zombie, a guy riding his bike in the woods, and there's zombies attacking him, and he films it with a GoPro, which I think is interesting. Again, like I said, this entire film kind of pushes the boundaries of what makes a found footage. So you have a contact lens, and then you have a GoPro. A GoPro makes a lot more sense than a contact lens, so we're moving up in the world there. But I don't love zombies, so that could be why this just isn't my favorite. I'm sure if you're more of a zombie fan, this could have been one of your favorites, which is great. After A Ride in the Park, I have Slumber Party Alien Abduction, directed by Jason Eisner, who directed Hobo with the Shotgun. I like this one. I think it's cool. The found footage comes from the kids in this put their camera on their dog, so it's POV from the dog, which I think is pretty cool. And I think it's an interesting and kind of more fun, down-to-earth sci-fi angle than some of the other ones that are sci-fi related. So I enjoy that. It kind of reminds me of like the McPherson tapes or something like that, which is a film I love, a film you should check out if you haven't seen, Found Footage and Aliens. I'd love to see it when it's done well. This is one that was adapted into a feature film. I have not had the chance to see it, but I think that's great that it was adapted into a feature film because I think that could be really fun. And rounding out, on the top, I feel like this is a high-ranking one for a lot of people just in general in the whole series, and that is Safe Haven, directed by Timo Tjahjanto and Gareth Evans. And Timo Tjahjanto is an incredible director who we will see later in this series, and I just think he's great. And Gareth Evans directed The Raid and Apostle. I love him. I think he's great. So these two powerhouses together, you love to see it. This is just the most solid, airtight one in the collection, and it's funny because it's an if it ain't broke, don't fix it setup. It's a documentary crew that goes to film a cult, and everything just goes to shit around them. And so it makes sense. It's literally just a documentary crew. You don't have to do anything fancy. So I do think it's kind of ironic that in this series, or this entry where people really tried to push the boundaries of what makes a found footage, the most basic of them is the strongest. And it really does prove sometimes you don't need to go crazy to make it work. The premise is interesting. I love a cult. We know this. Effects are great, and it just feels very intentional, and I love these directors so much, so it's awesome to see them working together. So that's it for VHS 2, and now I'm going to move on to my third to least favorite, so we're hitting the middle now, and pretty much from 2 on, I like all these movies. I really just dislike Viral. And even then, you saw I was quite nice to 2 out of 3 of those shorts, so I just like this series. Coming in at my third favorite, or fourth favorite, excuse me, I can't do that. This was hard. I was torn between 2 of them, but I ended up putting VHS 99 at number 4. It's just a solid entry. I think they're all solid from this point on. Like, it's hard to have any critiques at this point, honestly. And I personally really like the more recent trilogy. I think is setting it back in periods where it makes more sense for there to be VHS tapes was very smart. And I have a lot of strong feelings about nostalgia bait, but I don't think these are doing that. And I think a lot of that too is because I'm not as annoyed by 90s nostalgia bait because I grew up more with that, but the 80s stuff sometimes annoys me. Which I was worried about for 85, but we'll get there. It was not a problem. So, 99. Again, I don't think any of these are bad. So, if I'm ranking it worst, I still really like it. It's like saying, oh, this is my least favorite Stanley Kubrick film. Like, it's a Stanley Kubrick film. There's no such thing as a bad one. Coming in last for 99 for me is Suicide Bid, directed by Johannes Roberts, who directed The Strangers Pray at Night. Not a bad short at all. It's about a sorority bid gone wrong. There's some burying alive, which is very scary. And again, I don't think it's bad at all. Just not my favorite out of this group. It's just not the strongest to me out of this group. It has really good special effects, though. I love some good special effects. Coming in after Suicide Bid is Shredding, directed by Maggie Levin, who directed the Into the Dark film My Valentine. This one is fun. It's about a band that goes to play at this abandoned venue because a famous band had been killed there because of a stampede that caused the band members to die. So it switches between footage of our current band and the girl band that passed away. So the interchanging of two timelines is really fun, and it just feels quintessential of this series. It just fits right in. It's fun, good special effects. It's a little silly, and I like it for that. Next, for 99, we have To Hell and Back, directed by Vanessa and Joseph Winter, the directors of Deadstream. This one is super charming, amazing effects. It's essentially about these filmmakers who are filming this ritual for this cult on the verge of Y2K, and they accidentally get zapped into hell. And it's really cool how they managed to make hell work. It's actually really funny, and I think these 3 later entries into the series are a lot funnier, and I enjoy that about them because, you know, we shouldn't take this stuff too seriously. And just great sets and makeup. They knocked it out of the park with this one. And that's what I mean, like, this is my 3rd in this film, and I still really like it. Coming in at number 2 for 99 is The Gawkers, directed by Tyler McIntyre, who is directing the upcoming It's a Wonderful Knife. And this is about a group of boys who hack into the webcam of one of their neighbors, and chaos ensues. I think it's super simple. It almost harkens back to something you would have found in the original series, like the original film VHS. The twist is super unexpected. I'm not gonna spoil it here for you because I would definitely suggest go watching this. It's definitely a tale of gross men being held accountable, and we always love that, don't we? And coming in at number 1 for 99, my lord, this has to be one of the best in the entire franchise. It's Ozzy's Dungeon, directed by Flying Lotus, the incredible musician who's also directed the film Crusoe. It's so good. Ozzy's Dungeon is a Guts type children's game show that was on and then canceled because of a tragedy, and it just goes insane from there. I'm not going to spoil this one because you just have to see it for yourself. The sets are incredible. It is so accurate to those types of 90s Nickelodeon's kids game shows, and it's equally as up as it is hilarious, and I don't know how they managed to toe that line so well. And this one sticks with me. This to me is one of the quintessential shorts of this entire series, and it's such a creative thought to use, you know, something like a 90s kids game show. I think it's such a fun way to fit in with the time period, but still make sense within the world of what VHS is. That is it for 99. A great movie, all really solid shorts. At my 3rd favorite, I was really torn between putting this or 99. They're pretty much interchangeable. But for my 3rd, I had to give it to VHS, the original. Me putting VHS at number 3 literally could be just for nostalgia purposes for me because it is a movie that has shaped me as a horror fan. And I don't think I would be sitting right here talking to you about any of the stuff I've been talking to you about if it wasn't for this film. So I have to give it, you know, credit where credit's due. So it started all, the shorts are all solid, and it's just classic to me. Like, for me as a Gen Z millennial cusp, like, this is my integral horror. Especially for someone who didn't grow up with horror and kind of found my way into horror when I was a teenager, it just makes sense that this was kind of my gateway. Starting at number 5 for VHS, people may not agree with me on this one, I have Amateur Night, directed by David Bruckner, who directed The Night House, The Ritual, and the Hellraiser remake. This is the short, I think, that a lot of people think of when they think of VHS. This is the short film that was adapted into Siren, and I don't hate it. I find it really uncomfortable. I don't like watching it, and I know the point is that it's supposed to be uncomfortable because it's about this group of young men who, I believe his camera is in his glasses, and they go to film them having sex with these two women they find, and it just doesn't quite go the way they plan. So I get that it's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's definitely an anti-gross men story, but I just like it. I don't like watching it. So it's effective. And I love David Bruckner. He is maybe my favorite working modern horror director just off of The Night House and The Ritual. Like, The Night House blew me away. It's a Silent Hill game that we never got. I wish he was directing the Silent Hill 2 movie. I just love the guy. He's so cool. So I had forgotten that this was him until I sat down to do research for this video. So it's really fascinating just to see how much these people grow. Amateur Night, classic, iconic, just not my favorite. Coming in at number 4 is Tuesday the 17th, directed by Glenn McQuaid. And, you know, this isn't the best. The premise is very basic. It's a group of kids going to the woods, which is kind of overdone in my opinion. However, the villain in this is this glitching entity, and the glitch effect is really neat, and that's what elevates it to me. My damn name is glitchwitch.jpg. Of course I like a glitch, so they got lucky with this one for me, I guess. Coming in at number 3 is The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger, directed by Joe Swanberg, who directed Digging for Fire and Drinking Buddies, among many other films. I completely forgot about this one. I don't know why, because I really enjoy it. I love Joe Swanberg, that whole group of people, him and Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett and Ty West and the whole gang. This one is set up, it's a screen recording of a long-distance couple's Skype calls. And this was way before Unfriended and Host and all those others. I mean, even back in 2012, things were so different than they are now. So this is a pioneering effort in digital horror, and I have to applaud it for that. Yes, it's weird that it ended up on a tape, but I have to applaud him for really, this is a huge step to where we are now. Because films like Unfriended, I love Unfriended. I love those films, and Host was amazing. So it's really cool to see where that started. This one is done really well. The tension's really good. You really don't know what's happening. And the reveal is very satisfying. Solid short. And I think it's important for the impact it had on the art of found footage and digital horror. Next, at number 2, is 10/31/98, directed by Radio Silence, who directed Ready or Not and the Scream reboots. This is iconic. To me, it is quintessentially something I think of when I think of the VHS series. It's about a group of kids who wind up finding a witch at a haunted house. And the effects are amazing. I was just shocked the first time I saw this. And I remember being so excited when Ready or Not came out, and I realized that Radio Silence was directing it, because those guys deserve the world. They're so talented. It's awesome to see what they've done with the Scream franchise. And again, that's what's so cool about VHS, is you get to see these young, talented directors start and then grow. So I applaud Brad Miska for giving this platform to these people, because it has helped them all so much, and we've gotten so many good movies out of these people. And who knows where they would be without VHS. They still could have gotten there, but it's a great stepping stone for horror. Coming in at number 1, this is one of my favorite shorts in the entire franchise, and that is Second Honeymoon, directed by Ty West, who has directed X, Pearl, House of the Devil, The Sacrament, In a Valley of Violence, a very underrated non-horror film starring Ethan Hawke as a cowboy movie. I love Ty West. He just, I don't know. There's just something that guy does that I am just all about it. I love this short because there's nothing supernatural about it. And it just is a real thing that could happen. It follows a couple on a trip, and someone is following them. And it's done very well. It's very effective. I just enjoy the hell out of it. And Joe Swanberg is in this one as well as the husband. So I love this. I love that, all my little horror friends with my parasocial relationships with all these people when I was, 17. It's nice to see. So maybe this one isn't the best, but my rose-colored glasses for Mr. West will make it my favorite of this group. So that's VHS, the one that started it all. So now we're gonna get into the top 2 films in the VHS franchise. Coming in at number 2 is VHS 94. Came out in 2021 and was the first of the reboot of this series. I was obviously super excited when this was coming out, but I didn't know what to expect because you gotta keep in mind the last entry was Viral and that was years before. So I really didn't know what was gonna happen, but so pleasantly surprised. Starting in at number 4 for VHS 94 is The Empty Wake, directed by Simon Barrett, who has directed Seance and written pretty much everything Adam Wingard has ever directed. Super talented guy, one of the hearts of the modern horror scene. Love him to death. And really, it's hard to rate both these top 2 films because I love all the shorts. Like, at this point, they're just all good. It's really minor things that separate them. I love The Empty Wake. I really do. I don't have anything negative to say about it. It's about a woman who works at a funeral home that has to essentially corpse sit. Weird shit ensues. And this has a multicam setup, which is really cool, but still effective. It makes sense in universe. It's a basic premise, but it works. And again, this goes back to like when I was talking about Safe Haven. Sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because this one's scary as heck. So love to see Simon Barrett directing. I hope he continues to direct. Coming in at number 3 is The Subject, directed by our friend Timo Tjahjanto, who directed Safe Haven. And oh my god, this guy. We need to just give him the keys to Hollywood because this is insane. This short is insane. It is a sci-fi body horror about android-human hybrids, and it's the best sci-fi body horror I've seen outside of Tetsuo the Iron Man, which is a bold claim, but oh my god, this is done so well. It's so scary, the effects are incredible, and the storytelling is incredible. And this, I think, of any single VHS short should be a feature film. Coming in at number 2 is Storm Drain, directed by Chloe Okuno, who directed Watcher. I think this is the new iconic one of the modern trilogy. It's about a news station that goes to investigate some stuff happening in a storm drain with homeless people. There's a lot going on in that storm drain, and all I'll say is, hail Radma. It's so funny, it's so ridiculous, but it's also so scary. The special effects on Ratma are so good. And this feels like something out of the WNUF universe. If you guys are familiar with that, if you like VHS, you would love those films. Directed by Chris LaMartina. Similar premise. The first one is 80s TV, horror, spooky Halloween stuff, and the second one is 90s. The second one is called the Out There Halloween Mega Tape. I prefer that one, but both are really good. Maybe I'll make a video about those someday. But this feels very close to those, so if you like Storm Drain, I would go check out WNUF. And then number 1 for me on 94, I don't see a lot of people talking about this one, and I get why. It's Terror, directed by Ryan Krause. This short is about a group of white nationalist terrorists using a vampire to commit Oklahoma City type devastation on Detroit. I know, I can't believe I just said that sentence either. I can't believe this got made. The entire time I was watching it, I kept saying I can't believe this got made because it's insane. I grew up in Metro Detroit, and you know, Michigan historically has had a militia problem, so it was just fascinating to see this. And Detroit's so goddamn weird that our version of an OKC attack probably involve a vampire. That's just not that crazy to me. So I think it's really bold to comment on things like this, and I applaud Ryan for doing that, and I applaud the VHS gang for letting him do it, because oh my god. So I applaud this one just for going there, and the effects are great, filmed really well, vampire stuff's great, incredible stuff. We're moving on to number one. It's crazy because it's been out for probably 3 weeks max at the time that this is posted, but VHS 85, the most recent installment, really damn good, and it's got a lot of my favorite boys directing, so maybe that's why I'm biased. The thing, and I'll get into this more when we do the wraparound segment of this video, but the wraparound is what makes this the best entry in the whole series to me because it's flawless. Coming in at number 5 is Techno God, directed by Natasha Kermani. The premise of this is there's a performance artist talking about how we have killed God in favor of computers, and she's trying to access an AI techno god in her performance. It took me a second to get into this one, but the concept's really cool, and once she gets into the VR of it all, it gets really good. And the actress leading this, she carries the whole thing and does a great job. Coming in at number 4, and this is interesting because this is technically a 2-part short, which I didn't get at first when I was watching it, but it was really cool. So this is the first part of this narrative, and that is No Wake, directed by Mike P. Nelson, who directed the 2021 Wrong Turn film. And this is about a group of friends that go on a camping trip and go out into the water and are water skiing, having fun, and they get attacked by an unknown shooter. So I wasn't really sold on this at first, just because I think the whole camping thing, kids in the woods thing is kind of overdone. But once the shooting starts, it's really upsetting and it's super stressful, and the suspense is great. And the ending of this left me wanting more. And that's why I was thrilled when my number 3 in 85 came up. Ambrosia, also directed by Mike P. Nelson, because this is a continuation of the events of No Wake, but from the perspective of the person who has committed the crimes. So, great way to end the No Wake story. You didn't quite get that they were connected at first. Really unexpected plot that was revealed in a not really cliche or overdone way. Era quality was phenomenal for this. It looked really ripped out of 1985 in a way that I don't think any of these other shorts did. So I applaud it for that. Super cool. Love that they let Nelson do 2 and split them up. There were films in between them. So when it came back later, you know, it was an exciting conclusion to that story. Super fun. Coming in at number 2 is God of Death, directed by Gigi Saul Guerrero, who directed the Into the Dark film Culture Shock. And this is about a group of rescuers and a cameraman who gets stuck in a news building during a devastating earthquake in Mexico. And it is one of the scariest entries in the entire franchise, not because of any of the supernatural things that end up happening at the end, but because of the terror of the earthquake. They capture it so well. It feels claustrophobic. It's so scary to see these people in this life or death situation that's so real. Slight spoiler here. I really liked seeing indigenous Latin American gods used in horror. just a fun, different way to explore other religions. I think we get very hung up on Catholicism and horror, so I love to see other faiths represented. And on to number 1. Dream Kill, directed by my boy Scott Derrickson, who directed Sinister and The Black Phone. Listen, is this the best? No. Is it my favorite? God, yes. So, how do I even explain the premise of this? This is gonna be spoiler-filled because there's no way to explain this without spoiling it. So really, go watch Dream Kill and then come back to me talking about it because I want you to experience it raw and unfiltered and without my dumbass ruining it for you. The premise of Dream Kill is the police keep getting sent these horrific, like, 16mm home movies of a killer brutally, just systematically torturing and killing these people. They get sent the tape a week before the killings happen. The way that Scott Derrickson does his old school film stuff, which he's done in all his movies. Sinister, you have the tapes that Ethan Hawke finds that the children make for the ghoul. Super scary, super stressful, really well executed. He just knows how to do it with those, and there's also some scenes in The Black Phone that really aren't super necessary, but they're cool as hell. So I love to see him have an excuse to do this. I would love for him to make a feature found footage film, in this style, because he's so good at it, and I think he could do it. Genuinely, the tapes within this were so upsetting, especially that first one, because it opens with one. I could not look away. It was like watching a snuff film. Like, just terrifying. And this premise, it just gets clunkier and clunkier and clunkier as it goes, but oh my lord, I loved it. James Ransone is in it, who I love, who also Scott Derrickson clearly loves, so pour one out for Gunther. He saved the day. That was my total ranking of the films themselves and the short films within the films. And I'm gonna go ahead and rate the wraparounds, the anchor points to each of these films separately, just because I thought, you know, it'd be easier to separate them, because I don't always think it's fair to compare the wraparounds to the shorts, because in some instances they're just truly not as strong as the shorts. Again, I'm gonna do least favorite to favorite. So, starting off, not surprising, my least favorite wraparound is VHS Viral. The film is called Vicious Circles. It's the reason why Viral is bad, to be perfectly honest with you. I think yes, I don't like Dante the Great, but I think the other two shorts are strong enough that this movie could have been saved. But this wraparound makes no sense. It is so confusing to me. There's like, they're trying to continue the plots from the wraparounds of 1 and 2 with these haunted tapes, but they're putting them online, trying to go viral, and it's making everyone crazy. And there's an ice cream truck for some reason. I've seen it more than once. I do not know what's happening. I do not know. So I'm sorry to Vicious Circles, but girl, you are vicious, because I cannot handle it. Coming in at number 4 is VHS 2, which is tape 49. Not bad. No complaints, not my favorite. It's a continuation of the first one, and I just think it's a little less creepy than VHS. You have two people like trying to figure out why these tapes are being weird. It's fine. Number 3, I have VHS 94. The short is called Holy Hell, and this one is about a group of like SWAT agents or ATF agents coming in and raiding a cult devoted to these cursed VHS tapes, which on paper, mwah, genius. But it's almost too crazy of a wraparound, because I think a wraparound needs to ground it, and I think like the original 2 VHSs, it does ground it, it gives you a reason. But for this, it's like you literally have agents like going in, and then it like cuts to a TV on the wall showing the different shorts, and I don't know. it just doesn't quite work for me, but I applaud them for the creativity. Number two, and again, I do want to say there are only 5 wraparounds because 99 does not have one. Number two, VHS, tape 56. It's classic, set up the premise for the entire series. This group of guys are hired to find this tape in this old man's house, and chaos ensues, naturally. So it truly, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it type beat. Number one, and the reason why this film got number one for me, VHS 85, total copy, directed by my boy, David Bruckner. Look at how far he's come from amateur night so far. I'm so proud. I think this is one of the greatest shorts in the entire franchise, which is insane that it's a wraparound. That's the greatest, one of the greatest shorts in the entire franchise. And essentially, what the concept of this one is it is a made-for-TV documentary that the tapes we are watching are taped over. And that is so damn simple of a way to make a wraparound to these convincing that I cannot believe it took them 6 films in to think of that. By the time we get to Viral, the wraparound is so convoluted I don't even know what's happening, and I've seen it twice. Total copy. It doesn't have to have anything to do with it. Some freak just taped over this weird thing with all these other weird things, and that makes it just so simple, and I love it. I say I don't care when found footage doesn't make sense, but when it makes sense, I'm so happy. Like the film Spree, I may have to make a video about that someday because that's one of the most flawless in logic found footage movies ever made. It's just so good. Anyway, total copy. It is a TV documentary about these scientists who found a extraterrestrial who can morph himself to look like other things, and they're trying to teach him about humanity using television. So I'm sure you can see that maybe goes south. And super period accurate, really interesting sci-fi, great effects. It's a little funny, it's a little scary. I love David Bruckner. I love him. I hope that people keep throwing money at him. I want him to keep making original movies, because again, if you have not seen The Night House, oh my god, it's so good. If you're a Silent Hill fan, because I know I may have some Silent Hill fans on here because my first video was about Silent Hill, go watch The Night House. It's the Silent Hill game that never got me. It's so good. It's so upsetting. And it's so beautiful. And the ritual that he did is great as well. Some great effects. I just really love to see new directors come into this, and then some of the classics and repeats like David Bruckner, like Timo Tjahjanto. It's just really cool. And then even to see like Scott Derrickson, who has never worked on these films as a director, but is a established and well-known director. You know, it adds validity for the up-and-coming filmmakers to have these successful, you know, already known names come in, and I just can't wait to see, you know, what some of these other directors that have done shorts for these, you know, the most recent 3 go on to do, because it's great stuff, and this is the type of talent that we need in horror, and horror has been super successful in the past, you know, decade or so, with these young and up-and-coming directors just being given a chance to take risks and just succeed. I mean, look at Robert Eggers and Ari Aster, and one of my favorite boys, Kyle Edward Ball. I love him. And, you know, all these people. I just think it's really cool. It's really cool to see up-and-coming talent and old friends all come together and work together to create fun little snippets. And I think that anthology in general is just such a cool thing to do, and horror and anthology have always gone hand in hand. You know, you look at like Scary Stories to Sell in the Dark and stuff like that. I think it just works really well, because horror can be very effective in small doses, and I think that's something that VHS really shows us. So, you know, let me know if you agree with my ranking. If you'd like to share your own ranking, let me know. I love the VHS series. It truly has shaped who I am as a horror fan. I don't think that I would have been as gravitated towards things like analog horror and digital horror if it wasn't for this series. And I think if you're someone who is watching this video because you like analog horror, digital horror, and creepypastas and stuff like that, and you haven't seen VHS, I think you should definitely go check it out because you would really enjoy it, and they just really all go hand in hand. All these films are available on Shudder, which is a great streaming service that I highly recommend. I'm not sponsored. I have like 5 followers. Of course, I'm not sponsored, but I love Shudder. I just want to kind of shout it out because it is one of the, I would call it an underdog streaming service compared to your Maxes and Netflixes, and I just want them to keep succeeding because they gave a home to VHS, they gave a home to Channel Zero, another great show that I like, and they're now home to Boulet Brothers Dracula, which is another show that I really love, and I may cover a little bit in the coming months or so because there's a new season of that coming out, and I would say it kind of is in line with what I'm talking about. So if you are a horror fan and a drag fan and do not watch Boulet Brothers Dracula, definitely get on Shudder, do a VHS marathon, do a Boulet Brothers Dracula marathon. And if you love creepypastas, do a Channel Zero marathon. There's so much. So it's October. It's a great time for horror. VHS is a great franchise to just throw on, watch a few shorts, enjoy your day, stay spooky. Thank you for watching.